Today I am going to discuss about forest, the types, distribution, forest products, wildlife, etc. After this lecture, you will be able to understand few issues or topics related to forest, such as ecological role of forest, contribution to the economy, the words forest, forest types and classification. I will be discussing classification decided by UNEP and WCMC. There are two types of classification, temperate and tropical forest, followed by their subclassifications. So let us discuss about forest. The first thing which comes in our mind is, what do you mean by forest? Allen and Shaw defined forest as a community of trees and associated organisms covering a considerable area utilizing air, water and mineral to attain maturity and to reproduce itself, and capable of furnishing mankind with indispensable product and services. In simple words, I can say that forests are close formation of trees growing together at one place. A forest is a complex ecosystem which is predominantly composed of trees, shrubs, and it's usually a closed canopy. A forest is also defined as an environment that is covered by trees at least 5 meters, in other words 16 feet high, over an area of at least 0.5 hectare. That means a bit smaller than the size of an American football field. Forests grow in cold, temperate and tropical regions and cover about 30% of the land area around the globe. So now you can very well understand the relationship between forest and a space. Forests are considered as a storehouse of a large variety of life forms such as plants, mammals, birds, insects and reptiles. Also, the forests have abundant microorganisms and fungi which 𝗂𝗧 did in his important work of decomposition dead organism matter, thereby enriching the soil. Nearly 4 billion hectares of forest cover the Earth's surface, roughly 30% of its total land area. So now, after understanding the definition of forest, you may be thinking about the forest ecosystem, because in geographical word we always try to understand the man and nature relationship. Seeing this, forest ecosystem can be considered as an intermixing of two components, non-living, which is also known as abiotic, and living components. Climate, soil type and parts of the non-living, these are the parts of the non-living components, and the component that includes plant, animals and other life form that are known as the living components. Plants include the trees, shrubs, climbers, grasslands and herbs in the forest. Depending on the physical, geographical, climatic and ecological factor, there are different types of forest like evergreen forest. Those are mainly composed of evergreen trees such as a species having leaves all throughout the year, and deciduous forest, mainly composed of deciduous tree such as having a leaf fall during particular month of the year. So after knowing this, you may be very clear that each forest type forms a habitat for a specific community of animal or human being that are adapted to live in it. The term forest implies natural vegetation of area existing from thousands of years and supporting a variety of biodiversity, forming a complex ecosystem. Plantation is different from natural forest as these planted species are often of same type and does not support a variety of natural biodiversity. forest has traditionally been regarded as an extractive or robber industry, and forest, which once covered about 60% of the Earth's land surface, have been greatly reduced by clearance for agriculture, settlement and industry, as well as being felled for timber. So, it is very pertinent to understand the ecological role of forest, because forest cannot be only compared with the agriculture industry or other industries, but it has its own ecological importance. As I mentioned earlier, that it also balances the natural system. Let us understand the ecological role of forest. Forests provide an environment for many species of plants and animals, thus protects and sustain the diversity of nature. Plants provide habitat to different types of organisms. Birds build their nest, and the branches of trees, animals and birds live in the hollows. Insects and other organisms live in various parts of the plant. So, these all are interrelated. Forests also act as a hydrological flow modulator. Plants provide a protective canopy that lessens the impact of raindrops on the soil, thereby reducing soil erosion. Roots help to hold the soil in place. They provide shade, which prevents the soil to become too dry. This increases the soil moisture holding capacity. Forests help in maintaining microclimate of the area. Plants clean the air, cool it on hot days, conserve heat at night and acts as excellent sound absorber. Transpiration from the forest affect the relative humidity and precipitation in a place. Forests clean by the environment by muffling noises, buffering strong winds and stopping dust and gases. The layers of leaves that fall around the trees prevent runoff and allow the water to percolate into the soil, thus helping in groundwater recharge. Dead plants, on the other hand, decomposes to form human organic matter that holds the water and provides nutrients to the soil. Through the process of photosynthesis, forests renew the oxygen supply in the atmosphere by absorbing atmospheric carbon dioxide and moderating the greenhouse effect. So, after hearing all these facts and figures about the forest, now you can understand the significance of each and every element which is related to the forest. As per the report published by Ministry of Environment and Forest during August 2009, the annual carbon dioxide removal by India's forest and tree cover is enough to neutralize it close to 11.25% of India's total GHG emission at 1994 level. Some species of trees have the ability to return nitrogen to the soil through root decomposition or fallen leaves. Such trees are planted to increase the nitrogen content of the soil. Forest absorbs suspended particles in air, thereby reducing pollution. On the other hand, forests also help in the process of soil formation by causing weathering of rocks. They play a vital role in maintaining healthy watershed. You may be aware of watershed. Rivers originate in forest area and carry the organic matter from forest to downstream, thus supporting a variety of fish and aquatic animals. The richness of forest in upstream decides the biological value of river ecosystem supported by it. Apart from that, it provides forest food which has great medicinal value and used by local people irrespective of any season. In performing all these functions, forest stabilizes the climate, maintains the ecological environmental balance of the area and shape the landscape of the area. So now, after understanding the ecological significance, let us also discuss about the contribution of forest resource to the economy. forest provides valuable items like timber, paper, fuel wood, bamboo, cane, food fibers, essential oils. Forest plants provide hundreds of medicinal plant species, even poisons, insecticides, soap substitute like rita and shikakai. Tendu leaves, you may be aware, that is used as a beedi wrapping. And forests also provide fodder for cattle and other grazing animals, which is very significant. Leaves and twigs of some plants have high fodder value. It is useful fodder sources during drought. In addition to this, forests are also popular areas for relaxation and recreation, and they add to the aesthetic value of the area. Some form of forest is the natural vegetation of most parts of the earth, but some areas where the climate is too cold or too dry cannot support forest growth. The two main areas in this category are the polar region, where the growing season is short, the ground is often frozen or is a snow or ice covered, and where the rainfall is also very low. Atmospheric humidity is also low, and where the soil are thin, sandy or saline. The upper slope of mountains too are often too cold or lacking in soil to support trees. The temperate and the tropical grasslands also support few trees, and in most area this is due to the dryness or seasonal rhythm of the climate. However, it is now though that the vegetation of many grasslands has been modified by human interference over so long a period that forest cover has been reduced or eliminated. For instance, savannas occurring as a patches in forest or around the margins of tropical forest may have degenerated from forest as a result of burning by pastoralists or shifting cultivators over many hundred of years. Similarly, it is thought that North American prairies have remained as grasslands because Indian tribes periodically burned large areas in order to facilitate hunting. Most grassland areas are capable of supporting tree growth, as is shown by the fact that many prairies farms have planted trees as windbreaks or to conserve fallow lands. Extent of forest cover. According to FAO Global Forest Assessment in 2005, nearly 30% of the Earth's landmass extending over 3.9 billion hectares were covered by forest and woodlands. The amount of forest was 5.1 billion hectares or 40% of the global surface in 1990. The extent of forest cover and other wooded lands is given in a table which you can see. It is evident from this table that South America top with 47.7% of its area under forest and is followed by Europe that covers 44.3% of the land area. Africa is also close to Europe that covers 44.1% of the land area, and compared to that, Central America and North America covers 43.9% and 32.7% of the land area comparatively. Oceania and Asia, these regions cover 24.30% and 18.5% land area respectively. Tropical forest and the most important of all the forests, their magnitude and density are immense. They occupy nearly 1.8 billion hectares of land cover on earth, around 50% of the total forest cover of the earth. So now you may be very much convinced that forest exerts an overbearing influence on life on earth. They not only provide a safe haven for a richly diverse biota, but also favorably modified climatic parameters. The importance of forest is thus multidimensional, and this makes deforestation a process with devastating and wide-ranging consequences. The significance of forest is threefold, as I explained earlier also: economical, ecological and culturally. As I was mentioning before, that forests are one of the largest renewable natural resources. Forests provide a wide variety of goods and services that includes food, fodder, woods, resins, waxes, lubricants, dyes, and other kind of fibers that are very crucial. Many of these substances could be harvested on a sustainable basis. This fact enhances the long-term resources value of forest. The second important fact is the forest biodiversity has immense economic value. The rich flora and fauna of the forest hold the key to numerous life-sustaining products, such as pharmaceutical and pesticides. The third important is the economic value. The economic value is derived from the ecological stabilizing functions of forest. For instance, by preventing soil erosion, forest prevents economic inputs into erosion management, thereby translating potential expenditure into savings. Forests have most vital ecological importance, and they are held responsible for maintaining conditions for life on Earth. For instance, stabilization of global climate. Forest stabilizes global climate by profoundly influencing natural cycles, in particular the hydrological and carbon cycles. The temper and spatial pattern of rainfall are greatly affected by forest as they form an essential components in the hydrological cycle. They can also influence the levels of atmosphere, because the carbon dioxide and therefore the extent of greenhouse effect and global warming, more forests would naturally mean greater removal of atmospheric carbon monoxide during photosynthesis, and a resultant reduction of this greenhouse gas in the atmospheric. Fact, large-scale afforestation has been advocated as a method to reduce greenhouse effect. The protection of biodiversity, as I was discussing, forests are the greatest repositories of biodiversity on land, as they provide ideal condition for the survival and growth of living organisms. The number of species per unit area is much greater in a forest than in any other terrestrial biome. For example, the tropical rainforest cover less than 7% of the Earth's land surface, but harbor more than 50% of all known species on the Earth. About 62% of all known plants are found in these rainforests. The growing awareness about the necessity to conserve biodiversity is helping man to realize the significance of forests too. The third important thing is that support to natural ecological system and processes. The so-called life support system maintained by forests are being disrupted by unabated destruction of forest. Forest can sustain life support system in different ways. Forests check soil and wind erosion and thereby preserve the topsoil. They prevent landslides, they maintain soil fertility, they prevent flood by acting as a sponge. They regulate setting of water bodies including reservoirs. They improve air quality by absorbing toxic gases and particulate matters. They are particularly useful in refreshing the urban air, which is laden with vehicular and industrial emissions. Let me show some light on the cultural significance. As I mentioned earlier also, that forests are great aesthetic value. How? The green canopy and dense surroundings have always been a great appeal to the human mind. Recreational and tourist value, it is evident by the rising popular appeal of ecotourism and safaris. So what can be the different factors of forest development? Forests are very unevenly distributed over the Earth's surface. The original forest cover in most areas is either destroyed or modified by human interference. Spatially, forests are not homogeneous. latitudinally, climatically and pedologically. They vary markedly in regions. Different physio-climo-pedological and socio-economic factors are responsible for modification of original forest cover. The formation and growth of vegetation is chiefly influenced by the different factors. Let me explain you. The first one is climate. Climate is by far the most potent factor determining the form and types of vegetation in an area. Various elements of climate such as temperature, amount of sunlight, humidity and precipitation, amount of cloudiness, the period, duration of amount of rainfall, direction and speed of winds, apart from that amount of evaporation and transpiration, etc., influence the growth of trees, their age, species, etc. The second crucial factor is physiography and relief. Configuration and relief of the surface influence to a large extent the speed and direction of drainage, water flow, and soil erosion, which ultimately affect the growth of vegetation. The third most important factor is soil characteristic. The chemical composition, humidity, texture, porosity and depth of soil determines the influence the growth of the planet. Then of course the subsoil water. Plants are deeply rooted in soil. They derive their food through their roots from the soil. The presence of adequate quantities of subsoil water make up for the deficiency in rainfall in a region and eventually help the growth of plants. Fifth most important factors are the biotic factors. As you may be aware that man, animal and other organism facts affect vegetation in a big way. Overgrazing by animals often results in soil erosion leading to deforestation in an area. Overexploitation of forest by men has caused large-scale deforestation in past many decades. And yes, of course, in current era, level of technological development is very crucial. Technological development like using alternative sources of energy other than fuel, wood, different uses of timber as raw material for various industries, recycling of metals and use of plastic in place of wood. These increased knowledge of planet ecology, new silviculture practices, etc. have to a great extent affected the utilization and conservation of forest resources. Now through this lecture, you may have understood the definition of forest, the forest ecosystem, what are the economic, cultural and ecological significance of forest, the distribution of forest, and of course, the different factors which restrain as well as which help in the development of forest industry. At the end, I will say that forest and products are universally required for the continuation of human societies, as we all know. Loss of forest resources transcends and affect the entire planet. Societies all across the world are beginning to face up the reality that as a human being, we should conserve the forest in a sustainable manner to avoid the severe future consequences such as disaster risk reduction, climate change, etc.